Hi everybody, we're going to be trying to put together our special robot chassis today. So hopefully you have picked up your robot kit and your extra bag of pieces from school. If you haven't, then you're going to find this very difficult to do. You need to pick yours up as soon as humanly possible. So we're going to be aiming to put together this robot here. And I will apologize for the video, it's the best I could do for overhead at the moment. So this is the robot kit added onto a special laser cut body that you can make to have something a little bit more stable for the next few weeks as we do our off-site learning. So that's what we're trying to achieve. So we're just going to put him up here in the corner. What you're going to need from your official robot kit, so you might have to disassemble the cardboard one that you've done, is you're going to need the controller, you're going to need the two motors, you're going to need the battery box, you'll need various screws and pieces, so mine are still in a bag, but you might have to just disassemble yours to get them ready, and you will need your screwdrivers. Okay, I'll just move those items out of the way a bit. Now you need to get the Ziploc bag that you also collected from school that contains the laser cut pieces of MDF. There's some extra screws in there, a stick and a little pot of glue that may be useful. The other thing I would recommend if you can is some masking tape or similar tape. It'll actually make putting the robot together a little bit easier. Okay, let's get started. When you take the pieces out of the bag, you'll see that there are 4 wheel pieces. There are 2 side pieces that look like this, where the motors will go. There is 1 piece that looks like this, and a front piece that looks like that. But there's also 1 piece that's already been glued together for you with a marble in it. And this is going to be our special wheel. So please don't try and pull this apart. It was done so that you wouldn't have to go through the hassle of this part, but you should definitely have 1 of these. Okay, the process for putting together goes like this. We're going to start with this first piece. This is labeled A, and that is where our control board is going to go. So if you're holding it like this with the A facing towards you, your control board will sit on top. And if we carefully turn it over holding both pieces, you'll see that these pin ports here and up the top here, they fit into these grooves that are along the side and the top. Okay, so that's how that stops it from getting a bit loose. Now you're going to need to put 4 screws through in each of these 4 positions, and you're just going to want to use the smaller screws and nuts that originally came with your robot. So if I get mine out now, just move these extra items out of the way for a moment. So we just want to use these smaller screws, sorry, I should say bolts, and the nuts here. So we need 4 of those. So I find it easier to start with this top corner here. So we're going to go through from the front. Easiest thing is to hold it with your thumb, turn it over, put your nut on the other side. And I usually try and screw it on just a little bit to start with. It can be a bit tricky. I'm having to hold it a little bit funny because of the camera. Okay, and then using your Phillips head screwdriver, I usually try and hold on to the nut and just screw that in a little bit tighter. Now don't do it all the way tight. You're going to put too much pressure on the board, and we haven't done the other holes either. So now I'm going to go through and do this one, and this one. I'll probably speed the video up a little bit so it saves a bit of time. Okay, let's start putting our motors on. So we're going to take these 2 side pieces, okay? Now, the way it's going to work is where I've got the letter, so either B or in this case C, that is the outside, okay? So make sure that when you put your motor in, that when you're looking from the outside, you can see that letter properly. So I'm going to take 1 motor, and you might notice that there's a big hole and then there's these two smaller holes at the back. That's how we can help line up our motor. So if we look at the motor, that's not going to work because that is our big hole shaft area, and then these two small holes are where the screws will go through. So that's not going to work like that. So this motor has to be turned around. So now it can slot through there like that. Okay. Now using the long screws, we're going to put one screw through the wood and through the motor. You might need to tip it over to see. All right. And I usually try and put the second one through to keep it lined up. Now again, putting some fingers over that, or you can also use tape if you want. Turn it over, and the idea here is to try and get your nuts on. Sorry. So again, I'm just trying to get them on a little bit. Okay, so I've just got the nuts on a little bit. Just forgot to mention, make sure that your wires are actually pointing out. Don't have them underneath the motor, squashed between the motor and the wood. That's not going to work for you. So again, what I'm going to do is I'm going to hold onto the nut with my finger and use my Phillips head to tighten those up a bit. Again, it doesn't have to be super tight, just enough so it's not likely to fall apart. And that is my side motor assembly, part one. I'm now going to do the same thing with the C piece for the other side. I'm probably going to speed this video up again just to save some time, but you can go ahead and do that. Okay, now we have our two motor assemblies done, our front controller assembly, and we have our caster wheel assembly. So we're pretty much ready to try and put the whole thing together. All right, how do we do this? So if we take our pieces, you might have noticed there are some markings on the tabs, and there are corresponding markings on the other pieces as well. So if I take my controller, okay, and I look for these two lines, I can see them a little bit faintly, but here they are on the other side that match up. So those two match up. So those pieces are actually going to join at a right angle like this. They might be a little tight or they might be a bit loose, but that's basically how that's going to join together, creating a point for my wheel to join on. Now, what you're going to want is that piece there. Then on the other side, you've got a V. So we're going to have this motor that has a V, and that's going to join in there. So that's going to go on that side. And then at the back, we've got a little half moon, if you like, and a Z. And if we look at this piece here, we've also got a half moon and a Z. We want the actual E facing out, so it's going to come in this way with these extra tabs facing down. Now you can already see this is very fiddly to try and hold. So this is where your masking tape can come in very, very handy. You can glue this if you'd like to. That's what the glue was provided for. But I'm just going to take a bit of tape actually, and I'm just going to tape these in place. I'm actually going to start with the back in this case. I'm going to go with my half moon. I'm going to join that together. I'm literally just going to put a bit of tape reasonably tightly across that. Then I'm going to take my other motor, and I'm going to put that on there. So I'm joining the Z and the Z up. And I'm going to put a bit of tape across that. All right, so I've kind of made a bit of a hinge system here at the moment. Now I'm going to try and do the sides again. So I'm going to put one side on the other. It can be a bit fiddly. Again, if you've got another person to help you, it's not a terrible idea. But I'm going to put some tape across those pieces as well. So just make sure it's in, and I'm just trying to put a bit of tape across there to hold it roughly in place. Again, you can glue this, but of course if you glue it, you've got to wait for everything to dry, so I'll probably still tape it while the glue dried, but that way you can get it done. Now, it's still very wobbly at the moment, but that's okay. We've got a few more pieces to add. Well, we've got one main one, our caster assembly. Now the caster assembly, if we carefully turn it over, is going to go across here, okay? And again, I've got a plus symbol on this side, and I've got a sort of slash on this side, And if I look at my assembly, I've got a plus and I've got a slash as well. But basically, I'm still lining up the plus with the plus on this side, the tabs with the tabs on the back here, and this is all going to sit in place. Again, I'm going to tape that with a few pieces of tape, especially across this way and across there. All right, and I might try and put a few pieces of tape across front to back as well, just going this way across and going this way across. Now, what you'll have noticed is by putting this piece across, we've actually made it quite rigid. There's still some play, but it's quite rigid. And this tape is actually strong enough to keep it together the whole time. You could go around and put more tape to really seal it all up, or as I said, you could glue it, but that's actually enough to keep it going. Now, I'm just going to keep my wires out of the way, that's fine. What we're going to do is add our wheels on. So as we mentioned before with the wheels, we have one with an ovally sort of piece and one with just the 4 dots there. So we're going to line up the wheels, and we first need to take little bolts again and go through from the little hole side through the other side, coming out there. And we need to do that in all 3 to basically join or sandwich these 2 pieces together. So again, I'll just put that nut on finger tight. I'm going to do the next one. Might have to wiggle it around until it lines up. Finger tight. Yep. And then I'm going to do my 3rd one. And I'm going to do that finger tight. And when that's sort of all just finger tight, I now want to tighten them up quite a bit more. So it's a good idea at this point to use the little spanner that you had. If you've lost it for some reason, you might just have to find a pair of pliers at home, ask mum or dad. But you want to get these ones fairly tight. Not ridiculous, but fairly tight. So usually you need a bit more than just being able to hold it with your fingers. So we're just going to tighten those up. And this is just, again, about sandwiching the pieces together. That wasn't very good. Try that again. Just getting it on there first. There we go. If you feel like you can, I'm sort of holding it. That's fine. And that's what we want to end up with. That's our wheel ready to go on. Now this piece here is going to go across this piece here, and they obviously have to line up one way. So very carefully, look at your motor, look at that shaft and join it on. And then using the actual screw. So we've got an actual screw with a tip here. That needs to be screwed down through this hole using your Phillips head, and it screws into the plastic underneath, just like we've joined them on previously. So turn it over a bit. This does need to screw in reasonably well. All right, there we go. So that is now connected to the motor, and if I turn that, you might be able to see and hear it. Okay, let's do the other side. I'm not going to go through the whole thing. I'll fast forward this video so that you can see it happening, but you don't have to watch it. Okay, now I have both motors attached. It's time to join up our wires. So the wires are just going to come out from underneath to each side. So obviously make sure that your motors and your wires are separated. Don't get them crossed over, or else you'll get some very unexpected or no result at all. Again, if you like, you might want to put a little bit of tape across those. I might just do that just to hold the wires where you want them. So I might put some tape across this one here just to hold those wires, and just a little bit on the other side just to hold those wires here somewhere. Okay, and we're going to connect those into our motor blocks just like before. So what we've usually done is put the negative or the black into the top and then the positive into the second one down. So again, same thing, we'll use our small flat screwdriver. If you have got ones that aren't bent over yet, please make sure that you have bent them in half before you try and put them in. It just creates better contact for the connectors. and let's go ahead and do that. Okay, so now we've got our motors connected. At this point, I'll probably take this tape off here, the one that was just keeping them separated. If you did that, you may not have done it. All right, and what I'd probably do at this point is actually bring the wires towards the middle and put some tape around them here just to keep them away from your wheels. So you can see here how that's pulled them away from the wheels. Do be careful that yours don't pop off like mine just did. Obviously, I'll go back and reconnect those in just 1 second. Okay, the last thing we need to do now is to add our battery pack in. Again, make sure you've got some batteries in yours and that they're working. If you're not sure, you might want to just plug it in quickly. Just make sure everything turns on properly before you go putting it in. The battery pack's pretty simple. It's going to come and just sit in the top here. Make sure you turn it over so that you can still access the on-off switch. So I usually put it in here. It's just going to sit, and then you plug in your power up the top as usual. Now, if we turn on our battery, we should, of course, get lights. That tells us that this is all working. Let's turn it off. Now, the last thing I didn't point out that you might see here is I've already added on some rubber bands. So I took the rubber bands from my kit and I've just attached them onto the wheels, just being careful to get them nice and centered and equal around. That just gives the wheels more traction. So that rubber basically acts a bit like a tire and gives it much better traction when you try to drive it round. So you'll notice it's still just sticky tape. This is the one that I did earlier because it's got the code on that I need. Okay, but it's the same kit as what I've already put together, what you've got, just ready to go. So now when we turn it on, we should be able to control it with our remote control from our phone, and we should be able to program it, which we'll be doing in later classes. So really for today, it was just about getting this put together. By all means, go off and play with it, make sure it works, make sure your forwards and backwards and everything on your remote control work the way you expect, that you haven't got wires backwards or anything else like that. Because next week we will be doing some programming where you have to make this work, and I'll be asking you to make little videos of it and to upload those to Schoolbox as the evidence of your work, along with screenshots or otherwise of your program. So it is very, very important you have a working robot, and if you're having any issues, please get in contact as soon as possible. I'll probably need photos of what you've done so I can try and diagnose where you've made mistakes. But I think it's reasonably straightforward, and as you can see, it's really just been mostly held together sticky tape at the moment. Again, you can use the glue if you want to. If you've got a hot glue gun at home and your parents are okay with you using it, you could try that as well. But really, the sticky tape's more than strong enough to hold this together for what we need to do. Thanks everyone, good luck putting it together, and I'll speak with you next week when we get the robot actually doing something.